A couple extra tips on the top of your negotiation. Many concessions can be passed on to the buyer or buyer's agent. So for instance, a bank may say his commission is limited to 5%. You can go to the seller's agent, the selling agent that represents the buyer, and let them know that the bank is requiring both agents to lower their commission to 2.5%. So that agent gets 2.5% and your agent gets 2.5%. Or you can actually tell that agent that their commission is getting cut by 1% and force the buyer to compensate the agent for the 1% that they're lost, and that way your agent still gets the 3%, and 2% gets paid from the seller's side, and then the 1% gets paid directly from the buyer to his own agent to compensate him for that loss. If you aren't quick on your feet in a phone conversation, I think I mentioned this already, but you may always try to talk by email or fax. Loss mitigators seem to like email especially because they're so busy, they're so attacked. It's really easy to reply to an email as opposed to pick up the phone when you got a ton of paperwork and you don't know how long it's going to be. Someone's going to keep you on the line, or you don't know if they're going to be mean to you. They have a lot of stress in their lives, usually way more work than they can do. So they love email, and email allows you to craft the perfect message, present yourself in the way you want to. You need to understand your HUD-1 closing statement. You don't need to understand it to where you memorized it, but you need to have a general understanding of where everything's laid out and where to find numbers to put in there. I created a DVD that will explain that, so you need to watch that, at least watch it through, and if you're going to do your own HUD-1, then watch it through a second time and actually follow the instructions. A HUD-1 will include inside it all of the details that you negotiate, with the exception of a few. All details will be included in the HUD-1, like closing dates, all of the costs involved. All those details will be negotiated through the HUD-1. Typically, a lender will call you, and once you've agreed on a detail, they'll ask you to send a new HUD-1 with those updated details. Once you've already completed a HUD-1, all you have to do is make a small change, and the whole HUD-1 will update in the HUD-1 sheet that I've sent you. Oftentimes, when you're negotiating, you'll negotiate a short sale, and then you'll need an extension, extra time to close, because typically in a short sale payoff letter, you have maybe 30 days to close at the most. Sometimes they'll only give you 2 weeks, so they'll try to really rush you. Sometimes, though, the buyer might back out and you need more time. Don't worry about this. Just because there's a date that says you need to close, typically that's not a problem at all to bring a new buyer in and get the same exact already negotiated details with the new buyer. The bank really does want to sell. In spite of how sometimes they make it appear, they really do want to sell their house. Getting an extension is normally never a problem on a short sale. All you have to do is just tell them you need an extension. It's that simple. It is good. It's a very good thing for you to call more than a week ahead of time if you know you're going to need an extension. If it's looking like something won't close, update the person who's handling the closing, usually the loss mitigator you've been working with all along. Let them know, hey, this doesn't look like it's going to close by then. Can we get an extension? How do we do that? And so you would just work that out. Typically, though, if the buyer doesn't end up closing, you'll just wait till you get another buyer, and then at that point you ask for an extension and possibly renegotiate some of the terms and just go right through with it. Kind of along with the extension is something that's a lot more difficult is the fact that you have maybe a sheriff's sale coming up where they're going to actually auction your property off. Typically, they will not move the sheriff's sale unless the buyer is a really strong buyer. Oftentimes, if the buyer is strong, though, they will extend the sheriff's sale, take it right off sheriff's sale to give you a chance to get that closed. If it's an FHA house, they oftentimes will give you a whole 90 days, just totally stop the foreclosure process and allow you to sell the house, give you extra time. One useful tool when you're negotiating that you can send to your lender, something I've mentioned before, but it's a broker's price opinion form. I've actually included a form with this course that is the same form that the agent will fill out if they're evaluating your house for your lender. So if they value it wrong and screw up your deal, I actually have an instructional manual showing you step by step how to fill out a form using the forms I've presented to you. I have forms for all the major lenders, and if the specific broker's price opinion doesn't have your lender's name on it, you can still change it for your lender because they're pretty much all standard. I have a specific section on how to fill out a broker's price opinion form for you, and use that as a negotiation tool if the value comes in too high. There's also a tool called an REO spreadsheet, and I've included that. This is something that you can fill in as an extra negotiating tool, and it automatically calculates the net amount that your lender will receive if they take this property in foreclosure. Instead of going at it from a value perspective of what's it worth right now and why don't you accept this offer, you're going to actually say, listen, if you accept this offer now, you're going to get this amount of cash. However, if you have to wait months and you have a vacant house and you have to market it, and you have to pay attorney's fees, and you have to pay taxes, and you have to pay all these extra fees that come out, you're going to get this amount. And so you just plug in the figures, it adds it up, and it gives them something else that they can stick in their packet for final evaluation to get an acceptance. And so if you're having problems, you can go ahead and fill this form out. I don't necessarily recommend just filling it out right from the get-go, because it makes it look like you're trying to justify something and you're trying too hard. However, if you need to try too hard, then go ahead and do it. Fill this form out. Along with the REO spreadsheet, you can give some of the things you may have already given the person who came out to value the house, including contractor's estimates, other multiple offers. You may have already sent those in right from the get-go, but these are things that you can send in along the process to justify what you're saying and to show that you're really telling the truth. I also want to make a quick note about the commission. If you're trying to get paid through a commission, then protecting the commission is extremely important. You need to understand a few things about commission. I'm going to tell you about that. Number one, commission does vary area to area, depending, there's different local customs with different realtors and the way real estate works. But in general, it's very common in areas where houses are, say, average $200,000 to see commissions of about 6%. Not uncommon to see them go up to 7% though, or down to 5% or less for agents that discount. If you're trying to protect a commission, laying out the HUD properly will very much help you in protecting the commission. And that's explained in the DVD that I have on laying out HUDs. Traditional real estate commission works like this. The agent lists the house for a specific commission. Usually the commission is a percentage of the sales price. Sometimes it's just a flat rate, say $2,000 or $5,000 or whatever. There's regional, situational, and broker differences, variations. And sometimes you'll see a commission as low as 4% total gross commission, up to 10% total gross commission. Totally depending on the situation. In my region, a typical commission for a $200,000 home would be 6%, or a total of $12,000. Commission is split usually evenly between the broker that lists the house and the broker that actually brings a buyer. If a broker both lists the house, sells the property, it's called double dipping, and they'll be able to collect that full commission. It also invokes a situation called dual agency, which in an ordinary deal could potentially create an extra liability, because how do you represent two parties that are actually kind of opposed to each other in the same person? So that can create some things, some problems. Some states don't even allow dual agency. However, in a short sale situation, there's very little difficulty, just because typically the seller and the buyer are working together against the bank to create a sale that benefits everybody. That's just some background regarding commission. Also, for you to know regarding the dual agency or broker double dipping, as I call it, where one broker gets the full 6% or whatever, is that a bank will oftentimes see that and they think, well, that broker's making all that money, so let's cut it down. So oftentimes a broker will try to have one agent represent the seller, one agent represent the buyer within the brokerage. That way they can hopefully justify a higher commission because there's two agents involved. And even if one agent just shows up to write a purchase agreement and never talks or does any other work at all, he might just get a few $100s for doing that, and then the other agent gets all of it and they rebate that back to you. So that's one way of doing it to help protect the commission. I talked previously about what to say regarding commission. Just to reiterate, you want to always reiterate that the buyer is going to have to pay that extra commission, and they're most likely going to lower their offer if you cut the broker's commission. just always give them that choice of, do you want to lower the price or lower the commission? Which one would you rather do? And if they do choose to lower the commission, you can go back to the buyer and say, hey, the bank's cutting our costs, what was allowed to be paid out of closing, so we're going to have to counter you and ask you to pay some of the commission on this so that everything can be paid and we can close this out. And you can sometimes get the buyer to agree to pay the commission that was cut so that your broker/agent gets that commission. That's talked about how to actually work that out on the HUD and show that at closing, and that's talked about it. And I also show an example deal of how I did that.